Dobro večer. Dobrodošli u emisiju Što je klasik u kojoj istražujemo bezvremensko u književnosti. Danas ulazimo u svijet norveškog pisca Jona Fossea, majstora neizrecivog i dobitnika Nobelove nagrade za književnost. I to u Oslu, u norveškom kazalištu Det Norske Teatret koji izvodi njegova djela. Nazvan Beketom 21. stoljeća, Fosse svojim minimalističkim, a dubokim djelima otkriva tajne postojanja. U svijetu buke on zna snagu tišine. Što njegovo djelo čini univerzalnim, a kako sam razmišlja o njemu? Istražujemo ta i mnoga druga pitanja u razgovoru s jednim od najvažnijih pisaca današnjice.
Fosse stempel på det, og han klarer alltid å lage musikk av teksten. Så det er en gave for en skuespiller å få de her tekstene.
Han skriver jo både i romanene og dramatikkene ofte innom mange av de samme tematikkene. Tidvis er det jo også karakterer eller skikkelser som også går igjen. Men likevel, uansett hvor mye man har lest, så vet man på en måte aldri helt hvor denne fortellingen skal hen. Og det at han har den uforutsigbarheten i litteraturen sin på samme tid som han holder alt lukket innenfor en ganske streng form, er en utrolig bragd, synes jeg.
Så er det jo veldig mange som snakker om at han er så poetisk, og at det er liksom litt opphøyd, noe nesten guddommelig over tekstene hans, og det gjelder sikkert for mange av bøkene. Men de kanskje som har truffet meg aller best, er jo de der Jon Fosse bruker masse humor. Altså, jeg synes jo humoren hans er litt underfortalt. Det er jo ingen som kan bli så ravende forbannet som Jon Fosse. Og det har jeg jo ledd veldig godt av når naboen skyter hunden og han bare egentlig vil gå all in for å drepe naboen sin. Da er det altså en tsunami av følelser som kommer, og det er veldig morsomt å lese.
Det er også noe med at språket hans er jo alltid utrolig enkelt. Det er både enkelt i seg selv, det er også veldig gjentagende, og likevel så er det så utrolig rikt. Det er rikt i assosiasjonene det sender deg ut på. Det kan være noe veldig hverdagslig som likevel på en måte blir løftet helt ut av den hverdagsligheten og på en måte bare reise videre i det. Om det er en tom flaske eller en båt eller et helt enkelt måltid, så blir det likevel på en måte løftet og rammet inn på en annen måte, sånn at det ender opp med å bety noe helt annet. Og i den språklige enkeltheten så er det på samme tid veldig sanselig og veldig taktilt. Altså når jeg leser Fosse så føler jeg at jeg kan lukte havet og kjenne på en måte suset fra bølgene, ikke bare i hodet, men i hele kroppen. Og det tar deg alltid med inn i en slags rytme som gjør det veldig interessant.
Samtidig så kan det være andre ting som er fryktelig vondt, altså som går på, man kanskje tror at du som menneske bringer noe nytt inn i verden, du skal videre, du skal forbi det som kanskje ligger der fra generasjoner før deg, og så oppdager du kanskje underveis i livsløpet at du repeterer eller henter veldig mye fra det som har vært der tidligere. Jeg synes Jon Fosse setter gode ord på mange av de veldig sånn allmenngyldige menneskelige følelsene, rett og slett. Og så synes jeg jo når folk snakker om at det er monotont eller repetitivt, og ja, til tider så kan det jo være det. Men jeg tenker også at alle snakker om det musikalske, eller musikken og rytmen som er i språket hans. Og det er helt sant, det er en rytme der, det er noe som foregår i teksten hans, og jeg har ofte tenkt på at det burde en god rapper ta tak i, og så lage litt ordentlig god musikk basert på Fosse sine tekster. Det skulle jeg ønske meg.
Akkurat nå så jobber jeg med en konsert basert på septologien av Jon Fosse. Og der snakker jo den gamle Asle om at alle mennesker henger sammen. De levende, de døde, de som ennå ikke er fødte. Og det et menneske gjør, kan på en måte ikke skiljes fra det et annet menneske gjør. Ja, det treffer meg veldig. Jeg føler at det er veldig sant. Vi vi henger sammen med alle andre. I tillegg så synes jeg han klarer å sette ord på hvor vanskelig det er å nå hverandre med språk. At språket ofte går i stykker for oss. Det er like mye det vi ikke klarer å si med ord, det som ligger i pausene, i stillheten. Ja, det vi prøver å uttrykke, men som vi ikke får til å sette ord på. Vår hjelpeløshet der. De levende, alle mennesker henger sammen. De levende, de døde, de som ennå ikke er fødde. Og det ett menneske gjør, kan på en måte ikke skilles fra det et annet menneske gjør. Det er veldig fint.
Mr. Fosse, thank you for joining us on the TV show What is Classic. I hope you have your answer to that question, because I don't have it. I just keep asking and asking all over again.
What a classic is?
Yeah.
Oh, that's quite a difficult question to get. And the simple answer, I'm most into literature, and the simple answer there is that there's a consensus and an agreement about a certain amount of writers and works that are read over and over again, more or less all over the world, and then you consider it a classic. And then, of course, you can have such writers and works only in one country, in a national literature, of course. So, and I guess there's a quality in a kind of work that makes it a classic. And if I follow one of the theorists of literature I admire and have read quite a lot, Harold Bloom, he said something like that. It's a mixture of something unknown, something strange, that at the same time is in a way completely understandable to you. To put it in my words, I think it has something to do with, it has to be very unique, almost idiosyncratic in many cases, and at the same time universal. Over time, over border, from this language to that language, etc.
Literary experts consider you a contemporary classic. Italo Calvino, one of the Italian classics, said that the classic is a work which never stops saying something new. You said something about it before.
Yeah, I agree with that. All works of art that are important or are great in a way, they keep talking in a new way all the time. You don't just read it and put it away, and that's
of course I forget.
You have emptied it out. And the many works that are not classic, they are very connected to the time they are written in, to the country they are written in, to a certain message, etc. But a good literature in general, it has a kind of silent voice in it, I would say. I call it the silent language often. And it's really about that language, and the way you hear that language, or the way it affects you. It depends on you, of course, also.
Yeah, literature is all about language and how we use it.
Yeah, and I would say a painter like Mark Rothko, his paintings, they keep on talking to me, even if they are, as a painting, completely mute. But they have something to say that touches me, and I cannot exactly say what it is. And I guess it's something else for someone else. But it's the picture in itself is still talking, but in a mute, in a silent way. And that's, even if literature is, on a certain level, communication. I think it's this silent way of communicating that makes it great literature, and that is in a way a dimension that has almost nothing to do with the real world, the world it's referring to, more or less.
I like Rothko also a lot, but that's what you mentioned. It happened to me with your literature.
Oh yeah,
I know that you admire Dante's Divine Comedy a lot, that you read it many times. Why?
Yeah, I try to understand it. But that's of course one of the greatest classics. But that's
all times.
Of all times, and that is also, at least to me, it's very hard to get into that work, to understand it on a simple level, I would say. So, so I'm still trying it in a certain way to understand it, also on a basic level, I would say. But that's fascinating. I read it at first when I was in my mid-20s or something around there, and yeah, some months ago I read again the hell part. That was a new Norwegian translation.
You've been called Beckett of 21st century. Le Monde called you that. I know that you also admire Beckett a lot, especially Waiting for Godot.
Beckett fascinated me from a quite early age. When I saw theatre as a young man, it was boring almost all the time. I didn't like it. But exactly here, where we are sitting now, I saw a great production of 3 of his shorter late plays. And that was my first great night in the theatre. So from then on, I read his plays and even his fiction, and he is still one of the writers I admire. But over the year you get tired, of course, of everything, even of, let's say, Beckett. So by now I'm not that much concerned about him. So, but it's mostly I don't think my fiction is influenced at all by Beckett, because it doesn't appeal to me really I don't know why. But his plays are appealing to me still, perhaps especially the shorter late plays for this or that reason. So, but I didn't intend to write for the theatre, but I was asked to do it, and just trying to make a living as a writer since I was quite young, and I was going to be well paid just to write an opening and a synopsis of the rest of a play. And I don't believe in synopsis. You it's impossible to make a synopsis of literature, as impossible as it is to make a synopsis of music, I would say. So then I wrote the beginning and kept on writing, and I wrote the whole play. That had its world premiere in this room, by the way, on this stage. And in a way to make a distance to Beckett, Waiting for Godot, I call it Somebody Will Come, or it's also translated Somebody is Going to Come. So that's an answer. So I tried to use Beckett, or I imagined I could use him as a kind of father to make a rebellion against, in place of copying his writing.
When we mentioned Beckett, I remembered when Beckett won the Nobel Prize, I think his wife said, "What a catastrophe, what a disaster." And similarly, Wisława Szymborska, Polish poet who also won the Nobel Prize, said, "It's like tsunami." What changed in your life after receiving the Nobel Prize?
You know, I can well understand this reaction by Beckett, or I've also read that it was his wife that said it. katastrofe or something like that. Yeah. And Beckett didn't go to receive the Nobel Prize.
He didn't even attend the ceremony.
No. And I can well understand that. I didn't want to go myself, to be honest. I had to fight a lot with myself to manage to do it, because I don't like too much social life and big parties, etc. And strangely enough, I think many writers are like, or playwrights are like that, and even writers. They are introvert, and they want to keep on living a silent life in a way. So neither Beckett didn't go to receive the Nobel. Pinter didn't, but he was ill and had great problems at the time. And of course, Elfriede Jelinek didn't go. So I think the only, most of the playwrights that have been received the Nobel Prize in later years haven't gone to receive it. So, but at the same time, I feel it's a kind of obligation. This ritual in Stockholm, it's I think it has, with the great prestige and rumor that the Nobel Prize has, it has also a lot to do with this liturgical almost things going on in Stockholm in the Nobel Week, as I call it.
I liked your speech when you received the Nobel Prize. How do you define success as a writer? Is it about reaching audience? Is it about perfecting your crafts or something else?
To me, it's if I manage to write something that I'm quite sure about is a good piece of writing, then that's success to me. And then if the critics like it, if a lot of people buy a book or see a performance, that isn't at all important, I dare to say. And that's my honest opinion. So then I remember when I had my first productions in the theater, and they mostly had bad reviews. They were done, many of them, by the same director. And we agreed upon, together with the actors, if we manage to make something that we know is a good production, then it's a good production, then they can say whatever they want. We don't care. And that's my attitude. I don't care. They can say whatever they want. If I know I've written something good. Okay. And then how to know if you have written something good or not?
That's the question.
To me, when I'm writing fiction or even poetry, I almost always know if it's good or not. But when I'm writing for the theater, I'm quite often insecure. In fact, I'm a writer and not a theatrical person, or how to put it. And this transformation from text to a play or to a production, is it possible to make that with what I've written? That I'm still.
It's more complicated.
Yeah, I'm still insecure about that. Let's say when I wrote, let's say my first play, Somebody Will Come, I was quite sure I've written quite a good text. But is it at all possible to produce this text? That I was very insecure about. But when I wrote more and more plays, sometimes I didn't have that security about the text.
You mentioned poetry. Your prose is very poetic. You write poetry, but you rarely speak about poetry. Why?
No, I think in a certain sense, poetry is like God and like love. You cannot, you know it when it's there, and but it's impossible to say what it is. Or if you say what it is, then then it isn't poetry, or it isn't God. So it's you cannot define it, this quality of literature or yeah, whatever. Life can of course also have its poetry, and it's not connected to lyrical poems, even if I've written quite a lot of that too. But that's another thing. They can be epical also, etc.
Yes, of course. I think I never heard better definition of poetry. Yeah. I know that you stopped attending your productions of your plays, and that you find rereading of your books unbearable, and you hate analyzing your work. But we have to do it now, just a bit, sorry. I really admire your work. I especially like how simple and profound is at the same time. How you wrote about profound, deep ideas with on simple way and with ordinary language, and how you reveal the mysticism of everyday life. How did you invent, so to say, such a style, such a concept of so-called mystic realism?
No, I haven't invented anything. I think if you try to invent something, then in literature, then it ends up in bad writing, bad literature. It has to be given in a way. And when my way of writing, it was basically in my first novel that I wrote at 20, and that was published a couple of years later. And why? And I wrote like that, and I don't know, but there's a kind of literary musicality is very important to my writing, and I came to literature. I started writing after a period in my life where I was very much into music. I played the guitar, both an electric guitar in a boys band.
You wanted to be a rock guitarist, isn't it?
No, but I also played classic guitar. I didn't want it to be it. I just did it. In these years, I had no ambitions at all. I just liked it. I liked to listen to music, and I liked to play, and that's it. But I was in a kind of band and we played at local dances. To enter such a dance, you had to be 16 years. But when I played the first time, I was only 14. So I think we were very young, all of us, but we managed to play okay, I think. So, but I was not a good musician, that I learned quite fast. So, but I don't think that's the main reason why I stopped playing music. But I actually did. I stopped playing music, and I stopped listening to music, and I started writing. So it was, and then when writing, I in a way tried to recreate, or how to put it, what I was, in a way, experience of the state I was in when playing music.
And music is in your writing, really.
Yeah, so it's
because
a kind
of the rhythm.
It's the rhythm and everything. It's basically, if I'm to use one word to describe it, it's rhythm, I would say. And each and every work, it needs its own rhythm, its own movement. And to write a new work, it's to create a new rhythm, to put it that way. And rhythm is also very hard to define. It can be very simple to a certain level, but on a real, on the deepest level, it's very hard to say what it is. And I can't, I don't know it, but I feel that that's the word that comes closest if I'm going to use just one word to describe my writing. Yeah.
You don't have to say what it is. We can feel it every time we read your books.
Yeah, I think it's like that.
Yeah.
Again, it's like with poetry.
It's better to feel it.
Yeah, and I think you cannot explain it, but because it is moving. It's the rhythm. It's not the same. It's not static. Then it's a kind of talk, boom, 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 like that. That's not rhythm. Yeah. So when I'm writing, I'm only concerned about what I call form. And that has to do with a lot of elements, of course, depending on if it, let's say if it's a play or a novel or whatever. And in writing, what I have to manage is to make everything right. Stimmigkeit, they call it in German, that everything has to speak to everything in a way. If I change something on page 12, I have to change something on page 15 or 72, or everything is connected.
It's connected, yeah.
And it's following some secret rules that I create when I start writing something. And I have to listen to these rules in a way, and also to something else. At a certain point when writing, I feel that what I'm writing on is already written.
Yeah.
It's out there.
And you just have to write it down.
Yeah, and I have to listen to it, yeah, and try to grasp it and to, yeah.
Could you tell us more about that place where writing comes from? You said it's a sacred place and that you don't know much about it, but I think you know much about it.
Yeah, when I started out writing very young, I guess I was around 12 years old, but I wrote the first, it was lyrics to songs. I wrote small tunes and I tried to write the text also. And then I moved on to writing small poems and short stories. It's very awful, everything is awful, I tell you. But I still did it, and it gave me a kind of, when writing, I felt I liked it. I felt that I could somehow escape from the other reality in a way, what I didn't like, and stay in my own place, in my own, in a way, universe. And this, then I went to a certain place, as I say, inside me, where I could write from. I went to that place, and then I wrote. And it's still the same for me. When I go to that place, and then I write. And but I don't know anything about this place, and I don't want to know anything about this place. But I think if I knew it or tried to explain it or something like that, I would destruct it. It would simply disappear. And the same thing is this feeling I get. That's the inner side of it. That I'm writing from this secret place. But at the same time, I'm never writing anything autobiographical. I never use my own experiences in a direct way. I transform them and I use them in different ways, but never like it was when I experienced it. And because it doesn't work at all, it becomes simply bad literature if I write like that. I need to get a kind of wings or get a flow to my writing to make it literature. I have to transform experiences, and that is in a way to give them form, to write something worth it at all. It's simply so. But then in this process, I'm writing from this secret place of mine, and if I have an okay opening or something, at a certain point I get this feeling that, oh no, it's there, and then I just have to finish it, and then I don't feel it inside me; it's out there somewhere. Yeah.
You compare the writing to a prayer.
Yeah, I did so. I remember I did it in an interview once, and when I read it, I felt ashamed.
Why?
No, I felt perhaps it was stupid, sad, stupidity.
No, I think it's true.
No, yeah, but it's true. It's true. And then I thought I said something original, and then later read that Franz Kafka had said exactly the same, yeah, that writing is a kind of prayer. And by now I can understand more of why I said it, and also agree with it, but it doesn't go for everything I write, to put it that way. But most of my writing I can compare to, or is a kind of prayer, I think.
I liked a lot your novel Morning and Evening. It deeply moved me. I don't know if you like to hear that your readers are very emotional when reading your books, almost crying, because it's happened to me.
Yeah, you know, when I'm writing myself, I'm into this universe that I try to describe, and each work is its own universe, to put it that way. Like Morning and Night, it's a universe, and I don't get emotional myself when I'm writing it. I think it might have happened once or twice, I think, but I feel that some movements are stronger to me when I'm writing it than others. But I don't get very emotional. It's that's why I don't.
But your readers do.
Yeah. But that's how it should be, I think. It's like theater. It isn't the actors that are going to feel. It's the audience. So that's an old rule. If the actors are feeling too much, then the audience doesn't feel anything at all. Yeah.
You were awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature for giving voice to the unsayable. Sometimes, okay, very often I think that the unsayable is the very reason why literature exists.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that. It's, you know, you can try to, we try to understand life as far as we can, and also in different sciences, in sociology, psychology, whatever. But good literature, it's somehow seeing what you cannot see or understand by using concepts or theories. It isn't possible, and in fact it's completely true. You cannot grasp life in concepts, and literature does it in the way possible to say something you can transmit to another person. It's the possibility given to do that, I think, in art. Or
there's lots of unsayable in your novel Morning and Evening. Evening is the translation in Croatian. I heard you said morning and night. Yeah. Because it's a novel also about words, not about only about birth and death, about the importance of words in our lives. In the beginning, words exist, but they don't say much, according to Peter, one of the characters in your book. By the end, words disappear, vanish altogether. Death is a place where words no longer exist. So, does it mean that without words there is no life?
No, no, I wouldn't say that. But I think as a writer, I'm very skeptical to what words can say used in a normal way. They are hiding more than what they are expressing, and to use let's say a word like love, what do you say when using it? Almost nothing. And to say something real about it, you have to. You cannot say it. You have to write it. To quote Derrida, in a way, you can say something about love in a novel. I think Morning and Evening, that's the normal way to translate it into English.
Okay.
But there are different translations of this novel. So, and I think again, in the beginning, there's a newborn child that is experiencing sounds or vowels, when being born. Yeah. And in the end, it's Johan has been taking on this journey away from life, and he gets, and his friend Peter is telling him that where we are now going, there are no words. And I think this silence has to be in good literature. You are not saying the unsayable by saying it, but by creating a kind of silence that in a way is giving a kind of experience of what it really is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why you use pauses so much and empty places.
Yeah. Pause is no doubt the most frequently used word in my place.
The novel also delves into aging. Recently I have read an essay by an Austrian writer, Jeanne-Marie, on aging. It reminded me of your book. In the book, Johannes says it's terrible to grow old. What do you think? Aging seems to me somehow underexplored theme in literature.
I'm not afraid of aging at all, myself. But I guess you are right. There's not written a lot about aging. But still, you cannot write about, as I said, anything. I would say, if you try to write about something, then you miss the point. But still, you can, as a motive, you have to use a motive. It has to be about something still, in a certain way. And morning and evening, it's of course the second part, the evening part. It's about dying, I would say. How a man is experiencing his own death. But I've also written a novel called Melancholia, and in the second part, Melancholia 2, that's about an elderly lady who has difficulties with walking and everything physical, you could say. So I've written at least that, and in some of my plays there are quite old characters, as in one of my recent plays. How to translate it? Was it How It Was, or something like that? And it's a monologue of a very old man, and even in other places there are people, quite old people and quite young people. It's a mixture of it. So it doesn't really go for my writing. Yet I'm not writing about aging. But let's say in most of the classical plays and so on, they are about love. And then you use young, traditionally, or you use young people, not elderly people. Yeah. And Beckett, of course, has written about aging and old people a lot. And
Johannes prefers solitude. He likes to be alone. What do you think, why are we so lonely in this hyper-connected digital world where we are just a click away?
You know, when I wrote the morning and evening, I'm not sure even that I don't think I had any internet connection where in the cottage where I wrote it. So, and loneliness, it's something very personal. We have all of us have inside us a uniqueness, I would say. Each and every human being is unique, and this uniqueness implies a loneliness, solitude. That's the price of being human, and in my view, being created in the picture of God. We have something of God in us, and that's what is the most unique in us, and at the same time the most universal in us. So literature or art, if it's great, it's based on these two human dimensions. And then you have some artists that manage to transform this to a painting or to literature or music or whatever.
You mentioned God. You were an atheist and a Marxist, then you were a Quaker, and 12 years ago I think you converted to Catholicism. Why? What did you find in Catholic religion, and why were you religious after all?
Yeah, you know, I became a conscious person in the 70s, and in the Western countries we were all Marxists. Or if you were kind of intellectual, or yeah. So I was immature. It was the spirit of the time, more or less. What changed me, it was my own writing, because I didn't know, I couldn't tell where it came from, and I felt that it was given as a kind of gift to me. And how to explain that in a materialistic or Marxist way? No, it doesn't work. So then another dimension was opened up to me. It's what you call it, a spiritual dimension, invisible thing, as they say in the Nicene Creed. And when I understood this, I wasn't far from a kind of believing, of being a kind of believer. Or I actually was a believer. And I think I've really been it all the time. It was just a kind of private fiction, this Marxism of mine. I was fascinated by theory, and I still am. I studied philosophy and the theory of literature. That was my main subject when I was a student, and I am still very fascinated by concepts and by theory. The last book I read, by the way, it was by the French philosopher and Jean-Luc Mariot. God Without Being, it's called. That's heavy theory, but it's at the same time it's saying that, in a way, if you're going to say something real about God, you cannot at all say it the way I'm trying to say it now. If that's the way to describe it.
You write in a minority language in Norway, nynorsk. Did that pronounce it right? Yeah. Some people think it's an elitist language. Some people think it's even provocative, but it's very literary language, so to say.
Yeah,
why did you choose to write in that language?
No, the language situation in Norway, it's we are in. It depends on where you grew up. If you learn nynorsk or bokmål, New Norwegian, or the language of the book, as
it's always so depending.
And I grew up in an area of Norway where I was taught to write nynorsk, New Norwegian, when I started going to school. And the way people speak where I grew up, it's very close to normalized written nynorsk. And I never ever felt any need to leave that language. I learned when I went to Bergen to study that a lot of people disliked nynorsk a lot, and even hated it. So, and when you get that response to your own language, you get you insist on it in a way. And I have insisted a lot on that language in my life. Everything I've published as a writer has been in nynorsk. So, and there's a paradox to it. It was based on, or is based on, Norwegian dialects, the vocabulary, and not at least the grammatical structures and so on. But it's only 10% of the Norwegian population that are using nynorsk. There are many reasons for that. So in a way, it's ended up as a language mostly used in literature, in academia, in the theatre, in the Protestant mass. Norway is a compact Protestant or Lutheran country. We have very few Catholics, by the way.
Pope Francis recently wrote a letter about the importance of literature. It's a very important text. It encourages a love for reading. I know you once said that literature saved your life, isn't it?
Yeah, with a question mark in the end. But I was very happy when I read this letter of Pope Francis, because he's saying a lot of very wise things about literature that I completely agree with what he's writing in this letter. And to tell you one thing, that when I received the Nobel, of course I got many greetings, and one day there were a letter in my postbox, and I just opened it, and then it turned out to be a personal letter from Pope Francis, where he congratulated me with the Nobel, and wrote something very nice to me, to put it that way. It's a private letter, so I don't want to quote it, perhaps. But and I was very happy and touched that he sent me that.
Literature saved your life, isn't it?
I don't know. Of course, I don't know. It's an hypothetical question, but you know, as I was as a young man, I was in quite a lot in opposition, and I had the soul of an artist. And if I hadn't turned to literature and started writing, I might well have ended up in a kind of strange band playing to dances around Norway, and drinking far too much and dying far too young. That might well happen.
Yeah.
Quite possible. Yeah.
I'm really sorry that we have to end this interview, but only the last question. If you could imagine that you can talk to your younger self from this perspective, what would you say?
I would say what I actually have done, and stick to yourself. Don't listen to the others, stick to yourself. And that was what I did. And I've done it with a great consequence. And when I was tired enough of the theatre and of playing, of writing plays, I stopped writing for the theatre. I completely stopped traveling to opening nights, etc. So for 15 years, I wrote fiction and poems. I also stopped writing essays at a certain point. So I've taken some brutal decisions in my life, and they have each and every one of them have turned out to be right. Also, when I was teaching creative writing in a 25% engagement for 6 years, and I disliked it a lot. I didn't believe in it, and I decided to quit, and I had almost no economy in the years that follows. I was very poor, then I started writing for the theatre, and I started to be produced a lot, and after that the economy has been not a problem at all. If I hadn't quit that job, perhaps this wouldn't happen. So it's very, very important to listen to your inner self and to stick to that. Don't listen to all the others that want you to look like this or that and behave like this and that and everything. You have something unique inside yourself, and stick to that. That's what I'm saying to myself, and that's what I'm saying to others.
Mr. Fosse, thank you for an interview.
Thank you for talking to me.
Jon Fosse ima književni glas rijetke jasnoće u našem kaotičnom svijetu. Od mistike svakodnevice do one tišine među riječima uči nas da se moramo vratiti k sebi, ali pregrliti i ono nepoznato. Također i da značenja moramo tražiti u onom neizrecivom. Hvala vam što ste gledali emisiju Što je klasik. Vidimo se za 2 tjedna.